Iraq has expelled the Swedish ambassador after violent protests broke out at the Swedish embassy over the burning of the Quran. Now, this is a second such incident which has been recorded in recent times. In fact, Iraq has ordered the Swedish ambassador to immediately leave and has also withdrawn its envoy from Stockholm. This decision was prompted by the Swedish government's repeated permission for the burning of the Holy Quran, which, according to them, is insulting Islamic sanctities. So Abhishek, what does this essentially, I mean, I know this is grave. Do you think this again has a potential of kind of unsettling or instability in the region?
If you talk in the context of Iraq, it will
Yes.
not be as unsettling because clearly it will strain Iraq, people to people tie or a goodwill that West will have in Iraq, because normally most of the Western countries are not speaking very outrageously on the issue of the Quran, one of the most holiest book in religious book in the world. In Sweden, and it is not the one brazen attempt that has happened. The government has officially allowed one person twice to do this act, and now the same person has asked a third time that he wants to, do the same burning of Holy Quran, as Swedish government is, considering to allow that to happen. But now we can see the fallout has happened at the diplomatic level, also in, at United Nations Human Rights Council. Also, this issue was raised where India has also sided along with so many Muslim countries who have expressed their outrage and disappointment how the Swedish government is allowing such an act of disrespect to the Holy Quran. But in the name of freedom of expression that Swedish government has have in their constitution, they are still allowing this. And now we are learning that Iraqi government has asked the Swedish diplomat to go back to their country unless and until this issue is sorted and the Swedish government has some sort of empathetic stance taken on the issue of this Quran burning and the freedom of expression. We don't see any goodwill that is happening between Iraq and Sweden. And in fact, the fear is that the issue can snowball into larger political and religious issue internationally, where a few more countries can express outrage, and the Swedish government may have to face the brunt of them.
All right. Thank you very, very much, Abhishek, for sharing your thoughts on this. But we are remaining with this story because there were hundreds of protesters who stormed the Swedish embassy in the Iraqi capital of Baghdad in the early hours of Thursday morning. They climbed the building's walls and set it on fire. The demonstration was called by supporters of the Shiite cleric Muqtada Sadr to protest the second planned Quran burning in Sweden. Let's take a look.
Hundreds of people stormed the Swedish embassy in Baghdad in the early hours of Thursday, setting it on fire in protest at the expected burning of the Quran in Sweden. The demonstration was called by supporters of Shiite cleric Muqtada Sadr, according to posts in a Telegram group linked to the cleric. Sadr is one of Iraq's most powerful figures, who commands hundreds of thousands of followers. Eyewitness video showed demonstrators carrying his portrait and chanting pro-Sadr slogans. The Swedish Foreign Ministry said all embassy staff were safe and condemned the attack. Iraq's Foreign Ministry issued a similar condemnation, vowing to conduct a swift investigation to identify the perpetrators and hold them to account. The protest was staged after Swedish police on Wednesday granted an application for a public meeting outside the Iraqi embassy in Stockholm. Police said in the permit, 2 people were expected to participate. According to local reports, the two planned to burn the Quran and the Iraqi flag at the public meeting, and included a man who previously set a Quran on fire outside a Stockholm mosque. That action in June sparked massive protests in several Muslim countries, including Iraq, with Baghdad seeking the man's extradition to face trial in the country. The United States also condemned it, but added that Sweden's issuing of the permit supported freedom of expression and was not an endorsement of the action.
He left Iraqi politics last year. But Shiite cleric Muqtada al-Sadr showed rivals how much influence he still wields when his supporters stormed and torched the Swedish embassy in Baghdad. Prompted by one man's plan to burn a Quran, the incident has dragged Baghdad into a diplomatic crisis. embarrassing the government of Prime Minister Mohammed Shia al-Sudani, which moved to sever ties with Sweden after Sadr urged it to take a firm position. So who is Sadr, and how does he have such clout? His supporters are his main weapon.
We came here in response to the call by Muqtada al-Sadr, and we came in support of the Quran.
Sadr commands the loyalty of hundreds of thousands of members of Iraq's majority Shiite community. And this isn't the first time he's mobilized them. Last year, amid tensions with his Iran-backed rivals, Sadr's supporters staged a sit-in in the Baghdad parliament. In 2019, they joined huge anti-corruption protests that toppled a government led by pro-Iranian parties. Sadr is the only Iraqi Shiite leader who has challenged both Iran and the US. And that goes down well with millions of poor Shiites who feel they haven't benefited from governments linked to either. He's a powerful figure in politics and a kingmaker.
I demand this colonial government, American government, to resign immediately.
Sadr rose to prominence after the US-led invasion of Iraq in 2003. His militia waged 2 insurgencies against US-led forces. During the US occupation, he was an outlaw, wanted dead or alive. Sadr's movement won more seats than any other faction in legislative elections in 2018 and 2021, and many of his supporters hold key positions in the state bureaucracy. But his rivalry with Shiite factions backed by Iran has fueled bouts of instability. His attempts to form a government last year were thwarted, and deadly fighting erupted in Baghdad. Sadr wields religious authority. He wears the black turban of a Sayyid, someone recognised as a descendant of the Prophet Mohammed. His father was revered Grand Ayatollah Mohammed Sadiq al-Sadr, who was assassinated in 1999 after criticising dictator Saddam Hussein. Since stepping back from politics, Sadr has engaged supporters in religious events instead of protests. But a Quran burning in Sweden in June changed that. The incident has allowed Sadr to stir up his supporters and flex his muscles from the sidelines. And it's raised questions of a comeback that diplomats fear would again destabilise Iraq.